Hello, Mami.
Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to. Kamusta? Ayos ba?
Masaya naman. Grabe naman nila dito.
Wala eh, hanggang picture na lang yung tinitingnan ko ng mga bata, pati ikaw eh.
Tulog sila.
Tulog sila. Kamusta naman yung mahal ko? Maganda pa rin ba? Ha? Ha? Hello? Hello? Sino to? Hello?
Just go ahead. You have 40 versions, right?
Something like that.
Something like that,
around
right?
40 versions, and we had
180 hours of rushes,
Yeah.
40 versions.
180 hours of rushes, something like that. There are many different versions, and these are films that don't really exist in our mind before making them. In our mind, there is maybe a desire. There's a certain desire that we wouldn't be able of verbalizing it very much before making the film. No, as we say, before we find a place or people or a situation that calls us, and then we go and we find a way. We find the film while we make it. So the editing process is really a writing process, and finding the film and shaping the film in a way that it's normally, and this probably connects with your earlier question, because you were saying something about formal explorations, and I think there's something of this in both our films, that we try to our films are somehow a composition, that it's an invitation for an experience. It shouldn't, we don't make films that could be translated into a text, I think. So the importance of images and sounds are vital. Images are not used to illustrate an idea. Images themselves become the possibility of an experience, and the sound too. We work a lot with the sound also. While we are editing image, we are already editing a lot of sound too. We don't leave it for the end of the process. We do it simultaneously. And I have the feeling that we're shaping a film that is going to be somehow an experience, an immersive experience. So I had this experience while editing Mauro's film and other films before, and when I'm working with my film, I suppose it's an organic continuation of this way of approaching filmmaking. It's a way that has a lot to do with a certain process that we like to experience and to give time to it.
The new word now everybody is using is experiential. Everything is like experiential teaching or learning or anything. So your film is kind of like that. It's like experiential. You place the audience into that experience of being in that ship, or in the film, the sea is like in this beach area. You bring us over there to experience what it's like, the waves, the people who live there, the sun, the wind, and everything. So, yeah.
And I'm just thinking now that maybe from the clips we brought, I have the feeling that there is one clip that may connect to some of the things that we are talking here, which is the clip number 3. Who's in charge of?
Number 3?
It's in the clip number 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it I don't know. I'm guessing, but I think it could help to connect some of the things we're talking, and could relate to the ways we approach the process.
Meantime, I don't know if it's going to take a little bit of. At the same time, I think it's a kind of a logic step to go in that direction. I think the cinema since the beginning and almost in the last second part of the century is searching a kind of a plus of reality, no? And the directors go take the actors, even in fiction, the actors who gonna make of themselves in reality. So they start to try to find ways to give an impression of a bigger impression of reality, no? And they're gonna use characters that gonna do of themselves, or they're gonna use a part of their life. They're gonna write episodes of the film inspired by events of the real life.
Just to contextualize for those who didn't watch the film, The Sea Stares at Us from Afar, to give a little bit of a context. The film takes place in a national protected park area in south of Spain, where nobody lives. It's an unspoiled territory, with the exception of 4 men living there in their little cabins or huts. They live out of fishing. It's a really isolated, almost hermit kind of lifestyle that changes quite strongly in the summertime, because in the summertime a lot of holiday makers go to that beach, but the rest of the year is really deserted. And it's lonely men living there. They don't even shape a community. They're even isolated between themselves. It's fun. It's only 4 men, and they could shape something like a family, but instead of that, they don't get along very well in between them. So they are isolated from society, and in between themselves also isolated, kind of. Yeah, Mauro was talking before about this encounter between reality and our desire as filmmakers. Sometimes we want things to be in a certain way that respond to our own sense of whatever, beauty or whatever. And sometimes if things don't respond to this desire, we push them. We push reality to make it similar to our own ideal or to our own imagination. And yeah, after observing, I mean, this work of making a film like this starts with a lot of observing, taking the time to share days with the characters with the people that I want to shoot, and in that time that I spend with them, I observe certain things that I like and that I want to rescue these elements for the film. That sometimes are a little bit subtle things. It's not events on their lives, but it's just aspects of about the way they spend the hours, about the way they relate to the territory, about the way that they look at the context where they are. And so I watched them for a long time before actually shooting. And I know later on when we are actually shooting that certain things are not going to happen the way I wanted to happen. So it's interesting that sometimes you need to go through something which is fake to reveal a truth. I teach also in the Cuban film school where I was a student. Now I go to teach a workshop each year, and I always show them some Lumiere films. And the workers coming out of the factory is probably one of the first, after the train arrival, one of the first films ever made, supposed to be an innocent document of reality. And it's funny to know that there's like 4 different versions of the same shot in different seasons. Not even on the same day, like doing it again and again, but coming back in summertime, coming back in autumn, coming back in winter to make the same shot. And you can realize that they add little elements to these workers coming out of the factory, which is supposed to be like a really brute, real fact or something happening. But that's a good example to point at this combination or encounter between reality and desire, because they might not be satisfied, the Lumiere brothers, I mean, with the way that they come out. They might find it a little bit slow. So for the second take, they ask the workers, maybe, could you come out a little bit faster? And maybe for the third take, they throw a dog in the situation, because this dog, it creates an unexpected appearance that is going to give extra life to that 45-second shot. So yeah, there's so many ways of dealing with the unexpected and whatever you control. But it's true that we like, even when we do fiction, we like true things to come out and reveal. Even if we do like real fiction, when it looks too fake, it's. I think it's important to always trigger something true to come to the surface. Yeah.
it's a discussion without end. For example, me at the university, I teach also about this matter, and I spend nearly 30, 40 hours each year trying to demonstrate that this difference at the end doesn't exist. No? And we have several examples in the history of cinema that are incredible. For example, now I am thinking in Chaplin. Chaplin was someone who controlled everything. He wrote absolutely everything. But at the same time, and he did 40, 50 times the same shot. But at the same time, he wanted to record always all the shots because he knows the accident. That the accident could happen, and it will happen in a way that we can't fictionalize, no? And he knows it's so interesting, the hazard and the accident, and as so important as the idea of the shot. And this is another example that I like a lot to explain in my class, in my university classes, is about what happened in the middle of the Second War and a little bit after. It was completely crazy because we had through images that a lot of people thought they are fictions. So the army, the U.S. Army, was recording a lot of images for trying to demonstrate to the world that the things that happening are happening for real, and they have to record these images in a way to show and to demonstrate that these things are happening for real, and they have a kind of rules for having how to record these images. And at the same time, we have images that everybody thought they are real, and they were put it in fiction. For example, the Nazis tried to demonstrate how Jewish live in a very unsafe way in the ghettos, and they tried to find an excuse for doing what they did. Look how they live. They live really they have very bad habits, and we have to do something for. And they did a lot of fiction images that. And a lot of people thought they were real images of that, no? And at the same time, we have real images that a lot of people thought they are documented. It is completely crazy how things mix, no? In the history of humanity also.
Okay.
I wonder if the real character they watch the movie, what do they feel?
My characters from my film, they still haven't watched the film.
Why not?
No, well, because there's going to be because the film got selected to participate on a festival in South Spain, kind of near to where they live. So I think that would be a good, a nice premiere for them, so they can come to the cinema to watch it there. But I will think about probably the possibility of first having a screening in private with them, because they might be a little bit shy if they watch it for the first time with a lot of people. So maybe they might want to know in advance what is going to be in the film. So we watch it in private. I think we might do that. And then later on, they could come to the screen. But they have watched some sequences. They haven't watched the whole film, but sometimes I brought on a little the tablet and some sequences when I was editing. Sometimes while editing, I went to visit them for, I don't know for what. I was lost in the editing, and sometimes I went to visit them, I don't know, just so I could keep in touch with the characters of the film, because the editing room is also an isolated place, and sometimes so I went visiting them and I showed them some clips, some sequences, and the guy singing, he got really emotional when he saw two sequences. He saw this sequence, and he really liked it. He got really emotional. He even cried a little bit, a tiny, because I don't know. I suppose because they live very isolated, and suddenly to see themselves in a film, it might move something inside. I don't know.
And I want to ask one more question: that how long have you been living there?
In the shooting, you mean, or the whole process?
The whole process, including the research.
Yeah, the research, I started visiting them something like 3 years before I started shooting. Like my first approach was 3 years before. I had seen the houses in the distance since I'm little, because my family is one of those families who go in the summertime to the village, which is next to the national protected area. So since for many years ago, I've seen those little cabins in the distance, and I was curious, like, who the hell would live here, and how's life here in this place? And this question has been in the head for a little while. And one day I decided to approach, knock on the door, and see who lives there. And this might have happened something like 3 years before shooting. And then in the meantime, of course, I've been involved in other films and other projects, but each time I had a little bit of free time, and I would go there and spend a few days, spend a few evenings with them, talking or in silence. Sometimes they can be really comfortable with silence. They are not really talkative. And and something like that, 3 years, and trying to gain their confidence, because they don't socialize often. They're isolated, and they live in the margins of the legality. Actually, it's not allowed for anybody to live inside a protected park, but for some reasons the administration is doing like an exception with these 4 men that live there. They are allowing them because the confrontation would be a little bit aggressive, because they don't really harm the nature. They do very little impact to the environment. No, their presence there doesn't really affect the huge reserve. And because the administration, they know that whenever they pass away, whenever they pass away, there won't be future generations living in the same place. So they are like the end of a species, and somehow. And then the shooting was 5 weeks. First, we stopped. We went back to editing Mauro's film, Let's Go Ahead. A few months later, we went back and we shot another 3 weeks. And then I edited the film. And when the edit was almost finished, I went back for a 3-day shooting very quickly and very precise. Most of the time, the shooting, these 8 weeks, first 5 weeks and then later 3 weeks, it was more like, let's see what happens today. Sometimes I would bring an idea, like I would like this to happen, and try to provocate or to push reality for things to happen. Some other days we were more like passive, like let's see what chance. The gifts, sometimes we are given these gifts, that the chance gives you a sequence, and some other days more active. But then at the very end, when the editing was almost finished, I felt I needed certain things, and I went for a 3-day shooting, more like a hunter in terms of sometimes we were like fishermen, like we throw the nets and let's see what we capture. And at the very end, we went like really looking for specific sequences or actions. So in total, 8 weeks and 3 days.
Hi, I would like to know what is the greatest difficulty you guys have while doing the film, and how you overcome the difficulties? Yeah.
It was especially difficult because of the almost nearly through hard, so 90% of the day we have a direct sun very from above, and it's very hard. There's no contrast, and this direction of the light is not so interesting sometimes, and especially in this big. The sun, the extension of the sun is quite under this light is quite irregular, and it seems a kind of a white and it's a very huge white surface without relief. Especially when the light comes from above and you have this extension of sun, becomes a kind of mass with not a lot of interest. And it was a little bit hard to try to get details and shapes in that mass. But we try to use a lot, to be very efficient in the beginning and the end of the day for having a lot of images in that hours. And then a lot of times when the light was a little bit hard and strong, we work it a lot inside the hats, also. And we use it a little bit of a lot of natural tools for controlling the light, but simple things, reflection and diffusion. And we had small lights also that we connected. We nearly no use them, but there's a little bit, no? Sometimes, no? So.
And sound also was challenging too, because you get the wind. And then that scene that you show us is beautiful. The sound was so crisp and so clear. I don't hear any wind at all. Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, you don't have a lot of noise from when you are close to the border of the park, you have more noise from the small village. But at the end, at the same time, when you go a little bit farther in the park, I think it's quite good for a sound man, because there is really no sounds from the city or modern sounds.
Do you have any kind of imagination about the world, about the human being in the future? I mean, because you made a fictional film anyway.
We imagine it a lot of times how life could be in the future, but it's sure that someone from 1 century before, if he sees how we live today, he gonna think it's science fiction, no? Because the ship is already here and it's crazy how we live, and we accept that as normal, but it's not normal at all, no? And I think it was in my first script that this idea, no? And at the end, the film is pretty close to this idea also, no?
Yeah, no, I meant more about the concrete events happening that you can't predict, and then you write speculative ideas. And it's true that at the end of the process, well, when you finish the film, in the moment when you suddenly recognize yourself in the film, no, in a way, when after this long editing process, which takes a long, both films took 1 year of editing, my film too, and at the end of the process, you recognize yourself in the film in a way. And you say, oh, what a long journey to get to myself. Spending time researching, shooting, editing, and at the very end of the whole process, you see yourself somehow, no? And you recognize yourself, your own sensibility and your relationship to life, somehow condensed in a film. And in the process, you have something else in your back in your back. I don't know the word.
I mean, the editing is a process of selection of scenes and putting the scenes together in such a way, and sometimes is very unconscious. Is your unconscious keep on coming up, and then you do things you don't know why you do it, but then it just feels right. Yeah. Right? And so it's fantastic that way. Yeah. And in shooting is the same way too sometimes, right? Where you place the camera. And why did you place the camera there? And why did you keep on shooting? And instead of shutting off, you just keep on shooting as if you were anticipating something to happen, right?
In my case is the camera, and I think in edition, Manolo will say his opinion about that. But for me, the camera is a way to feel very present in the place. No, it's not all the time like that, but I have to record a lot. When the film let you do that, because sometimes you are more in a fiction way and you have to follow a script and a day shooting program. But in this kind of films, you have a lot of time to explore and to shot. And I shot until a moment some things start to happen in a way that you didn't expect, and you start to feel very present and concentrate, and you start to have perceptions, and I think you start to synchronize with the thing that you have in front of you, your own energy, your own time, your own rhythm. Start to understand what is happening for real in front of you, and you start to catch a kind of truth of the things that you are shooting, no? And I think you are always doing this exercise between, no? And sometimes I say to my students, I see they try to do a kind of intimate film, and there are more people beside the camera than in front of the camera, and they are very excited. They talk a lot, and it's strange how you gonna reach, or how you gonna catch something truth from that place if you are in that mode, no? And maybe in the editing process is a little bit the same. You have to hold the electricity has to pass from the beginning to the end of the film. Sometimes you have the impression the electricity is passing, and sometimes there is not passing. And I think it's not passing when you are trying to apply something that is a little bit exterior exterior from foreigner or
Yeah, something that you say that I think is funny that in order to see, sometimes you need to frame things, no? And it's making a film in a way is a way of fixing your attention to perceive things that other ways, probably because reality is always very ambiguous and things spread all around, and sometimes you need to frame in order to fix your attention and actually see. Otherwise you might not see. It's interesting, no, that you need to make the composition. But about what you were saying before, I think many of the things we do are unconscious, like in a psychoanalysis event. Yes. You talk and suddenly one word gives you a clue about something, no? And it happens in a very unconscious way. And I think with the filmmaking too, sometimes I had the feeling sometimes that my work as a director of my own film, sometimes I felt that my work was not to be an obstacle. And this is my task today, or right now. My task is not to be an obstacle, no. And some other times, of course, I'm all over the place trying to organize things. Very often, I'm just a witness of something, and my role is to channel what I saw, and to channel it by not becoming an obstacle and finding the right way to this energy pass through and get to the film. And with the editing, sometimes the head goes first and the hand follows. And that's not the. I think it works better when the hand goes without direction, and suddenly you discover things. No, really to discover things, it's more. I don't know. It's not a rational process, but definitely you need to be working. Whenever who say that, was it Picasso, that the inspiration comes when you are you should be working for inspiration to catch you or to get to you.
And sometimes we get stuck too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's okay to get stuck.
Very often.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think
very much.
we owe them a big round of applause. This is great.
Thank you.